Hello everyone, Pineapple Apple here with part 2 of the season finale of the Blue Box show Doctor Who, Series 15, Episode 8, The Reality War. Last time was a pretty solid episode, and my only hope was that this episode wouldn't turn out like Empire of Death. It does have issues, a couple I assume, due to the uncertainty in production timings, but boy we have a lot to talk about. And this was no Empire of Death. I see people hating, absolutely calling these two episodes the lowest the show has ever gone. But are we forgetting the Saranga conundrum? As I say, whether you like something or not is an opinion, but seriously, calling this the end of Doctor Who is like kicking a stone and saying that you have to chop your leg off to stop the pain. Let's skip the preamble as we have a lot to go through with the extra-length finale, The Reality War. And not only that, but unfortunately the end of an era. A lot for this episode to juggle, and while pieces are rushed and the pacing in the second half stumbles a couple of times, overall it delivers pretty well. We of course start where we left off, Anita saving 15's arse with the Time Hotel's doors, pissing the Ranis off, but when the clock hits, everyone else is put back into May the 23rd. And of course, with the lovely Anita's return, we get flashbacks. Once again, yeah, occasionally like last episode they're a bit much, but honestly, any negativity from them is negligible. Anita uses the doors to show 15 the world is back to May the 23rd. As said later, the Rani repeatedly setting the day to spread the fabric of reality thinner and thinner. We get to see what Anita's been doing, or rather, who, after she finally got over the Doctor, with some, sure, fan-wanky but cute callbacks, and they get back into the Smiths' house. No, not those Smiths. 15 gets a little pissed when Anita calls out Poppy's sudden existence, and I like the whole emotional focus on Poppy in this episode. Sure, it could have been executed better, but for 15, the so-called emotional Doctor as many call him, the heart of his regeneration story, sure, still having the bombastic world-ending stakes, is at its heart about saving one life at the cost of his own. A decision many Doctors would struggle to make. 10 did it after a lot of moping, but I almost can't picture 7 giving his life for a baby. He'd probably weigh the odds and decides a not real baby is on the whole worth less than the other lives he could save. On that topic, by the way, Missy Part 2 review coming soon. The Doctor goes to grab Poppy and Belinda, symbolically freeing himself from the Wish World's constraints by changing outfits when dropping his jacket, which is some decent visual symbolism. Coming into the hotel, Belinda knows who she is again, and both of them are kinda still figuring out the fact that Poppy is real and very much their child. 15's next stop is Unit, initially freaking them all out until there is enough of a connection between the current day and the real world, waking them all up.
I'm wearing a suit.
I'm wearing tweed. I'm wearing nylon.
And also releasing the Vlinks, and Rose Noble appearing, freeing 2 characters that most people in the fandom don't care about. So I like the Vlinks, he's just a little guy trying to do his job, but Rose is an actual attempted to be fleshed out character, so I'm a little more critical. This is another story where Rose, played by Yasmin Finney, doesn't do shit. I like the commentary of her not being in Conrad's world, but apart from 80% of her performance in The Star Beast and in The Giggle, she dresses like a flasher and taps an iPad, because of course Kate gave a teen/young adult access to heavy artillery in Empire of Death, and here she gives Ruby a jab. That's it.
That's it.
I was begging for her to have some role in this story, but was ultimately disappointed. On the flip side, Anita is essential to the plan and gets some cute one-liners.
I'm in the hotel industry.
Unit are confused and 15 explains the bone beasts, making them interesting, because I was worried they didn't get explained last episode. 15 also shows everyone Poppy, Kate internally hoping to recruit yet another child. Kate wants to wake up our nearby personnel, kinda scary, she's had all her people chipped like she wants to blow off their heads or something if they go rogue. But that wakes up Shirley and her superpowered wheelchair, Mel on her scooter, and Ruby, who is being torn into by Carla again. Jesus, the universe is hell-bent on making this woman the worst mother ever. The Rani presses Conrad into telling her where 15 is, the creepy and flirty angle hitting pretty well. So the Rani appears in the middle of Unit to confront 15 properly, while Susan goes to build a zero room for the baby. Just to be extra, Mel rides her scooter into the middle of the main room, and 15 gives them the rundown of the situation. Mel giving the Rani exposition, summing her up well, even if Bonnie is putting a little too much cheese in there. Ruby asks why Poppy looks like Captain Poppy, and we get the explanation that she is an amalgam of 15 and Belinda, memory, DNA, and wish-wise.
I'm genuinely sorry. But she's not real. She's made of hopes and dreams and wishes.
That is every child.
Which is basically the same kind of cop-out as Russell's genetic spatial multiplicity. The Rani, of course, comes down and offers 15 a place by her side, wanting to make a new race of Time Lords in her image. And since they were apparently left barren, not by the reasons in the extended universe, but by a genetic explosion, which I guess could only be the Master's death particle, but this is probably my main issue with this story. Russell doesn't seem to understand what happened in the Timeless Children, as the Master slaughtered the Time Lords and used their corpses for the Cybermasters. And then Koshamus used the Death Particle, which is said to destroy all living things, now retconning that to mean leaving life unable to procreate. And that on its own is an interesting idea. But first of all, why would the Rani have been on Gallifrey at the end of the universe? And if she was there for the initial attack, she would just be dead, not barren, as the rest of the Time Lords were killed, not infertile. And the Doctor gets in a TARDIS and escapes the Death Particle. So why would the Doctor have even been affected? So why Russell went through all these hoops instead of introducing Looms and Pythia into the main continuity is beyond me, but at least we got a couple of good reactions.
I think she's asking us to mate.
It would be fine enough for new viewers, but as someone who likes aspects of 13's era, kinda pisses me off, and it's a major point off this episode. We get the cool Mrs. Flood reveal and the explanation of Bi-Generation, it being a reaction to the Death Particle, a desperate bid for the Time Lord body to try and procreate. And okay, I would have rather the Rani just regenerate and never think about the logistical hoops of Bi-Generation, but I guess it works well enough. It's just sad that the whole idea this explanation is built upon just doesn't work. They explain that Omega was exiled to the Underverse. When this happened, I don't know, probably in the Time War, considering that's not what happened in the Three Doctors or Arc of Infinity. That could have used a bit more definition, but the Rani sicks the Bone Beast on the tower, Unit turning it into a massive turret to fight them. And okay, this is awesome. I love it. 15 puts Belinda and Poppy into the Zero Room, and this is probably the best time to talk about the fumbling of Belinda, and while a little annoying, it's not as bad as some would make it out to be. Belinda started off well in her first 3 stories, needing to get home, but between then and Wishworld was just kind of written as companion. Now in this episode, she is all, I need to look after my baby, and unfortunately, due to the timing, this comes off as validating Conrad's imperfect idea of a family unit. But in reality, what we should have seen more explicitly if the season had more episodes, Belinda's motive being to save her daughter, and her timeline being retconned later to be all about getting back to her daughter, makes sense. We see in Lux and the story and the engine, she is a very caring person. While she should have continued standing up to the Doctor, one of my main issues with the Interstellar Song Contest, having her care about her child above all else is really interesting as a motive, and justifies her strong outburst of wanting to get home. As before, her only motive did seem to be she wanted to go to her home, filled with people that didn't like her, to go to a job that drains her, where she was undervalued. Now she has someone waiting, relying on her, and I think if better timed without all the sexist connotations that could be linked to it, this has far more value in it than most see. The only problem with it is that it came after Wishworld. Because she can be the strong, independent female character people liked, but still have the motive of going back to her child. They don't necessarily cancel each other out. The action starts as Ruby is strapped with Project Indigo, and the Doctor uses some clever duplicity to steal the Rani's Segway and fly into the Bone Palace. Does this scene look perfect? No, but it's hype and immensely fun, and a lot of the time that's what counts. Additionally, it's nice to see Susan so active, and I don't really like the almost comedic silent cut to Belinda and Poppy. That was a little unnecessary. 15 lets the Ranis open their hole to the Underverse, and Omega comes through, and while obviously not as good as his other appearances, Omega either needed his own story separate to the Rani, or needed to be a plot device in the Rani's story. And I think this appearance here toes the line just enough. This isn't the tragic fable Omega we know. As 15 puts it, this is a twisted version of Omega, the Underverse having manipulated him and turning him into the legends of the Mad God. probably having been sprouted from the multiple times he's tried to bust back into the universe, and the design reflects that well. This isn't the character Omega as we knew him, this is the Force Omega, and in that way the story works quite well. Where it doesn't is Omega eating the Rani. Both Ranis are excellent in dialogue and acting this whole season, and while having the main villains defeated halfway through to allow time for the emotional resolutions and goodbye could have worked with a little tweaking, this does feel a bit rushed. I like the whole Rani getting defeated by her and hubris deal, but much like everything else in the story, it just needed more time. We probably should have got another 40-minute episode and then an hour-long finale. Or a 45-minute finale and an hour-long special to wrap everything up. Omega is defeated by 15 using the power of the Vindicator to push him back inside, which looks really cool, but is a little hypocritical of Russell and his whole no-gun thing. Meanwhile, Ruby confronts Conrad, and the confrontation itself is good, but let's talk about Ruby as a whole. While I'm bummed she didn't get to say goodbye to 15, she really shines in this episode. To stop the Wish World, she uses Desiderium's powers, but before that, she takes pity on Conrad, the man that screwed her over, and wishes him to have a better life, where he doesn't become the piece of shit that he was. And that is a testament to Ruby's strength of character. And later, we play to her other arc, having been a foundling, where she keeps reminding everyone over and over about Poppy's existence, because she was that child, metaphorically speaking. Where she barely did anything last episode, here I think this episode doubles down with Lucky Day on furthering Ruby's character really well, even when she isn't the companion. So everyone celebrates, the day is saved and Poppy is still with us, Desiderium is dropped off with the Sundays without any powers, which is really sweet. I'm sure Kate will hire him in 10 years' time. Wow, there are a lot of children in this story and a lot of Kate jokes to make. 15 fixes the loose ends from the robot revolution, and after some cute TARDIS and Poppy scenes, there's some great visual storytelling as Poppy's coat gets smaller and smaller. Basic, but still clever. And eventually they completely forget, and it takes them landing back in unit, Ruby pointing out all the inconsistencies for them to realise there is someone missing. And of course, Susan even mentions she's technically only 1 year old, so that's why Kate hired her. Yeah, okay, I'll shut up with the Kate jokes now. 15 says goodbye to Anita and she name drops the boss, just like the Meep did, mentioning they know 15, so I'm sure that'll be resolved in a future season. After they remind the Doctor about Poppy and his heroic deeds, he realises he needs to put reality right, correcting the inconsistencies left by all the reality manipulation. But the only way to do it is the sheer amount of energy of the last of the Time Lords regenerating. And like I said before, this is the perfect reason to have the so-called emotional Doctor regenerate. And of course, it's clever to have the knife twisted later when he does give up his life for his daughter, and she doesn't even end up being his kid. What 15 is about to do is massively dangerous on a cosmic scale. The reverberation's so powerful it drags 13 into the TARDIS, and holy shit, okay. So Jodie pops in to say hello and goodbye, and yeah, I love this scene. And especially how they take Bi-Generation off the table. So to be fair, I love every Doctor, but honestly, 13, 14 and 15 are at the end of that list, all for different reasons. I never got a sense of gravitas from 13 that I wanted. 14 is clearly a gimmick, even if he has nice moments, entertaining but doesn't really measure up. And 15 has had so little time before going it feels insulting, having 2 seasons and not even doubling Eccleston's run. But this scene and the rest of the episode are some of my favourite for 15 and 13, and my god, the way 13 looks when he tells her she'll never get to tell Yaz her true feelings, the look on her face, oh my god. 15 does his thing, and with a nice shattering effect he wakes up in Belinda's garden, in a much nicer house, to her and Poppy, and we get the reveal she was now always coming home to her daughter. And the flashbacks here really work, and the way 15 reacts with the baby, it's all very good as he realises the truth.
I can't have children. But if I could, I wish that she was exactly like you.
And has a bit of a bittersweet goodbye. And 15 ends up regenerating, travelling to Joy so as to not be alone, which is a great way to integrate her. And his final words, chef's kiss. This is another heartbreaking regeneration, even though he wasn't in my top Doctors. And the way the TARDIS reacts to him, it's all very well done. But of course, we need to talk about the thorny flower in the room, Rose Tyler herself, Billie Piper as the 16th Doctor. Or at least she seems to be. There seems to be a bit of discourse there. Now, I do get some of the criticism. This is very BBC incestuous fanbait, but people seem to be overlooking that since she left Doctor Who, I haven't heard anything bad about her acting, only a lot of positives. So while in the context of the show, yes, it's a bit annoying, I would like some more fresh blood. She is one of the better choices. But of course, like always, I will stay my proper judgment until her series actually starts. So that was the Series 15 finale, The Reality War. Nowhere near as bad as people are saying, but not the best. 15, Ruby, and Belinda are great. Sure, they each have failings, but on the whole, while the pacing and understandings of the past are shaky, the heart of this story and the characters were impeccable and hit me in the feels. And the ending from the two Doctors to Billy's return hit me harder with every rewatch. So while I'd like to go higher, I wish I could justify an 8, I'll have to give Series 15 Episode 8, The Reality War by Russell T Davies, a solid 7 out of 10. Could have been better, but it was leagues above Empire of Death. Thank you everybody for watching my review of The Reality War. I seem to be in the very, very small minority of people who actually enjoyed this episode. I mean, I get that there were failings, but people are acting like this episode crawled out of their screen, screwed their mothers, and then went off and robbed a bank. It's not that bad. Please like the video if you liked it, comment down below if you wish, consider subscribing to the channel, and if you do, ring the notification bell so that you're told every single time that I make an upload. Once again, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next review. Bye!
Toast. A little piece of toast, because there's so much to choose from. There's brown bread, white bread, all sorts of wholemeal bread. It comes in funny packages with writing on the side.